Today we're watching... The movie opens in Jerusalem as we follow a little kid running through the crowd of people. Seems to be carrying something of vital importance. As we see some eggs being delivered to a man who goes, no, no, no. The kid runs all the way back and gets fresh new eggs, because apparently that's what he was carrying. And the mystery man goes, 2 perfect eggs this time, I assume. And he's like, oh, mon ami encore. Then bro goes down and measures it with a ruler to make sure they're the same. And the kid's like, maybe they're the same. And then he's like, they aren't, but I ain't about to flame this kid. I blame the chicken. But then he doesn't even eat them and he's like, allons-y. So this guy's all about perfection, keeping things even in the world, up to the point where he steps in a pile of poo. And then he goes, it's not about the stepping in the poo, it is about the imbalance. Then he steps in the poo with his other foot and he's like, we're good to go. Bring out the accused. Bring out the priest, the rabbi, and the monk. And he rambles about these 3 guys meeting under the supervision of the head police officer. And while they were discussing a meeting, a valuable religious item got stolen. It was a priceless relic that has gone missing. So the 3 of them have been accused all of stealing it. So then he starts pointing out that somebody climbed up to the top and grabbed it with a hard-soled shoe. Then he plants his cane in the wall for some reason. We'll see that later. 3 holy men live humbly. Why would anybody steal an item? It would be conspicuous, yes? Then he randomly says, can we get some guards at the south gate, please? We'll see that later too. Then he says it was actually the chief of police that stole it. And he's like, what? And then he says, if the shoe fits. You probably regret inviting me to this case, huh? And it shows that they sent a guy to the officer's room already to get the bag. And inside the bag is the priceless relic. Bro decides to bolt throughout the crowd, but he gets stopped by that guard that got sent there earlier. Then he's running back the other way and he gets clotheslined by that cane that he put there. After the case, this soldier's like, how did you know it was him from only a tiny crack on the wall? And the detective says, I can only see the world as it should be. And when does not, the imperfections stand out like a nose in the middle of a face, which is such a weird analogy. Because what about people that have tiny noses? Or people that have no nose, like Voldemort? He says it makes his life mostly miserable, but it's useful for detecting crime. Okay, bud. He says whatever people say, there is right and there is wrong. There's no in between. A theme that this movie will definitely cover. Then we meet a bunch of people getting onto the boat with this detective. His name is Hercules Poirot. And Ray from the crappy Star Wars movies is here. That's fun. Then he meets an old friend and he's like, hop on my train. He's like, I cannot refuse. This is a bougie train. I need to go somewhere. This lady immediately starts flirting with him. Okay. I mean, he is kind of a celebrity. Everybody kind of knows his name. And there's Olaf the Snowman, but with a mustache. Il est un problème? No problem, just we are bunkmates. And he's like, really? And he's like, I am equally disappointed. Now's a great time to speed run through all the characters. Firstly, we have Hercule Poirot, which we have been following. He's a Belgian detective, a former now retired police officer who became a world famous private detective instead. We have Mrs. Hubbard, an American actress. We have Mary Debenham. We have Colonel Arbuthnot, a British veteran become doctor. The German Princess Dragomirov. We have Hildegard Schmidt. She's the personal maid of Princess Dragomirov. We have Hector McQueen. He's an assistant to Mr. Ratchet. He's also fluent in multiple dialects. There's Count and Countess Andreni. They're Hungarian royalty that's chilling in the back car. Cyrus Hebard is a professor. Lastly is Pilar Estavados. Woo! That's it. Okay. Moving on. Now we're introduced to Johnny Depp's character, and he's a bit of a dick. I'm sorry, a pretentious dick. He does have a servant that's here with him that is helping him out. And the servant delivers him some coffee just before his bedtime, which is... I never understand why people drink coffee before bed. It just doesn't make sense. It has caffeine. Even decaf has caffeine. Decaf just means no added caffeine. Cool shot of the train in the night as we transition into the day. And bro sleeps with a night guard for his mustache. Oh my god. He gets given some breakfast in bed and hopefully the eggs are right this time. Ooh, c'est parfait. Also, he's getting upgraded to first class. Everybody in the train is together for breakfast time, but some reason they're getting served some champagne. Compliments of the Orient Express. Hebert is being told he has to sit with the doctor, but because he's black, he doesn't want to sit with him. Like should not be with unalike. Then Ray from Star Wars is like, I actually think they mix well. You would never mix your red and white wine together. Then she does, and she's like, I like a rosé. And then she walks off after doing that. Then Johnny Depp finds Poirot reading alone, and he's like, can I sit with you? I'm gonna eat dessert, and it's an indulgence. I don't want to indulge myself alone. Just finding an excuse to sit and chat with him. I'd like to offer you a job. I'm suspicious someone here is trying to kill kill me. I need some protection. He's like, it's probably the Italians. Because he's a shady businessman who doesn't do deals right and gives fake art to people and sells it like they're the real thing. I don't prevent crime, I just solve it. Which is such a bullshit answer, but whatever. Then he pulls a gun on him under the napkin for some reason. Like, do not point the gun at me. Then he starts offering him so much money, $15,000 just for the train ride. You sell fake art to gangsters and you're paying the consequences. I detect criminals, I don't protect them. And then he says,
I do not like your face.
oh my god. Now this is the most integral night, so everybody pay the fuck attention. While Poirot is reading late at night when he hears someone running through the hallway. He goes and checks outside and he hears the servant knocking on Ratchet's door going, Mr. Ratchet? But no one answers. He hears someone whispering and he goes, yeah, monsieur, good night. Poirot takes no of the time and then tries to get some shut-eye. Here's a phone ringing now. Mrs. Hubbard, the actress? He's like, it's always Mrs. Hubbard. Bro's just trying to get some good night's sleep. Then another thing happens and he's like, oh, there's some person in red running? Okay. Bro, just ignore this shit and go to sleep. But okay, it comes back and is helpful, I guess, so whatever. There's a freaking thunderstorm with lightning that hits this mountain, causes an avalanche, shit falls on the train, and then the train gets derailed and stops. So now they're all stuck here. And he's like, I really just can't get to sleep. Everyone's like, are we gonna die? What happened? Oh my god. He's like, please just remain calm, stay in your cabin, it's fine. But this shit looks fucked. I would be so upset if I was in this circumstance. I'm afraid our train cannot go anywhere. No shit, dude. And everyone's like, how long are we supposed to sit here? We can't just be doing nothing. Somebody has to be doing something. And he's like, I'm doing something. I'm doing nothing. Because people are gonna come in a couple days when they realize we didn't make it. Everyone's like, I have a connection, I have a boat, I have a flyer. Shut the fuck up. Shit happens, you can't fix it. Everybody has their reasons for not wanting to be stuck. You know why? Because being stuck sucks. But you can't do anything by complaining, so just deal with it. Movie characters. Then we cut to a cool above shot of Poirot and Ratchet's valet with his food. He can't wake him up and the door's locked. Poirot feels that there's cold air underneath, so he breaks open the door with his cane. While staying in this above shot, we see other people come in and start reacting to it, but we don't know what's up until he says a man has died. And they all know the killer must be on the train still. We still haven't even seen the body. Please, can you solve this case? So when the police arrive, it's a shut case. At first, he's like, no. Then they're gonna pick someone at random and they're gonna hang and it's gonna be all your fault if they're wrong. He's like, okay, I'll do it. So Boo comes in and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, it appears our bad luck has worsened. Poirot cuts off his bow. He's like, a passenger has died on the train. And then everybody kind of doesn't seem shocked. Olaf's like, looks like they got him after all. He had his enemies, that's all, I mean. Oh my god, murder. And then Mrs. Hubbard goes, someone was rummaging around in my cabin at night. No one would believe me. Okay, lady. So why are you saying this right now? Okay. And then Mrs. Dusseldorf's like, what's going on? Bruh, pay attention. What are you doing? Because we're not moving, I'm going to find the criminal. And the Cyrus dude's like, and why you? Because I am the best detective in the world. I am the shit. For your own safety, I suggest you stay in your cabins until I talk to you. And this lady's like, I feel like a prisoner here. Bruh, who gave you lines? Why are you chirping in at this time? If there was a murder, that means there is a murderer. Still on the train, because where the fuck would they have gone? That seems to shut everybody up. Now they search the entire trains, and for some reason they're walking on the snowy top. They're asking to slip off and die. They're not gonna slip off and break something. They're gonna slip off and die. It just doesn't make sense to be walking on top. But whatever. Nobody on top, nobody on the sides, nobody on the bottom. Train is searched and clear. All the culprits are people we have met. Except for the people we haven't met. We cut to them interviewing Olaf and he's like, I'm gonna drink because my boss is freaking dead and I'm out of a job. He says Ratchet was in antiques. Didn't have the knowledge for it or the eye for it, but he knew how to scam people and make money. He claims when it came down to the business that he did all the work. He did all the accounting and the scheduling. Yeah, buddy, that's what an assistant does. So basically Ratchet is a felon, shady businessman, scam artist, whatever you want. He hands over some notes that Ratchet had received days prior. The kind that looked like newspaper cutout ransom notes. Then Olaf says, go question the Latin man. Their distaste for murder is a lot less than ours. I thought you didn't hold a man's race against him. And he's like, depends on the race. Bruh, why are people like this in this movie, huh? It's like they just found excuses to act like this. When he goes to finally inspect the body, he sees 12 patternless stab wounds. There seems to be some drugs in his coffee, a lady's handkerchief, and his gun that he couldn't get to. He had his gun underneath his pillow to defend himself, but it would prove useless because he was drugged from his coffee. Also found at the scene, his watch, which was stopped at the time suspected of murder. They find some burned paper and they go and they burn it again, and it somehow has the letters come through so they could read it, write it down. And the note reads, "As a strong blood is on hand, you will die." The man's not actually Ratchet. His name is actually Cassetti. It says, "You'll also know the name Armstrong." The Armstrong is a rich family that has a baby daughter. Cassetti apparently kidnapped the daughter, told him to pay the ransom. They paid the ransom out of desperation. Then he ends up killing the baby anyways and taking the money. The news shocked the mom, who was also carrying a child, and the child and her died. And this guy's like, "Mrs. Hubbard wants to speak to you." And this lady just wants more screen time. She can't help herself from talking. She's like, "There was a guy in my cabin last night, but no one wants to hear me out." Like, dude, can you just stop making yourself suspicious? My room is connected to Ratchet's. The killer must have went through my room to get out, to escape. But I'm like, okay, all the rooms go in the same hallway. I don't know really how effective that is, but okay. She's like, "The door was unbolted." And I'm like, can you please finally be quiet now? His butler gets interrogated, and he's kind of a normal dude, like old style kind of guy, war guy. He says I delivered his coffee to him, and that was it. He says he ordered the coffee at dinner to be ready at 9, so it was. But then he adds, anybody could have gotten hold of it before me. Which is just so sus. Why say that? Then Miss Pilar Estavados is a nurse, and he's like, okay, let's skip through that. And the professor of engineering gets interrogated. Then the Latin businessman gets talked to. Then they all give stupid backstories that actually have nothing to do with the story. Mrs. Pilar says she opened the wrong door at one point during the night, and it was to Ratchet's apartment, and he pulled a gun on her, and she closed the door and ran off. Okay. The Latin guy goes, I came to America with nothing, and now I have 3 showrooms and all this shit and a huge business. Okay, whatever. And for some reason, Ray really wants to be interviewed outside in the cold. I don't know why. Just wanted to be different, I guess. But okay. He starts sussing her out for something she said earlier to the doctor, who apparently she just met, as all of these characters have just met on this train. She says he sees crime all the time and that everything must be sus to him. And he goes, no, crime is the anomaly. So that she fucks off back to the train. Crime suspect number 1 at the moment. Next, she moves on to the German princess. She asks if she ever was acquainted with a family called the Armstrongs, which I have met multiple Armstrongs in my life. So I don't know how this works. I don't know how this works. It's like, have you ever met a family by the name of Smith? Okay, like, yes, the odds we're talking about the same one is pretty small, but I guess Poirot knows what he's doing because he's in a movie. He's real emotional talking about the kidnapping story. Gives the handkerchief to her. Is this yours? And she's like, fuck, I can explain. And they run over to the conductor where the conductor was sitting. This is not the same conductor I saw the other night. That guy was much smaller. We're off to find a uniform and a red kimono. He checks all the bags and he can't find it, but he's like, there's one bag we haven't checked, my own. And of course it's in there, because why not? Like, the killer is mocking me, the first mistake. So if I were the killer, why wouldn't you just throw the evidence out the window while you're driving away, you know? Like, the train is moving, you're not going to see it. Why keep it on the train? Are you going to be sentimental about that red kimono? Anyways, then they find the conductor's uniform that had the key in it, and that key could unlock all the doors on the train. Why not? Then they smell the uniform and they're like, there's bourbon on this. And right away they're like, Olaf, that drunken bastard. So they're looking through McQueen's stuff when McQueen is escaping outside the train, and a chase embarks. And I don't know why the structure is like here, but he burns the ledger in a barrel and starts running. And watching Josh Gad run is just funny. I mean, you don't know it's Josh Gad yet, but we know, like, yeah, we know it's him. Multiple times they fall and they fall and they fall. And I'm like, why are you running? Like, okay, are you just gonna run all the way to the next town? Like, you are in the Polar Express.
This is the Polar Express.
No, but I mean, like, what was his end goal? To just keep running? Like, he's gonna get caught. He has to go back on this train anyway. And they're all like, oh, you got him. That was him, right? Like, oh, you have your man? He's like, not quite yet. You're not the killer, but there's all this money you kept stealing from him. Is that why you ran? You did this to the numbers. Yeah. What's the word? The fudge.
It's full of the fudge.
He's like, yeah, I did it. Get wrecked. I didn't kill him. And he asked the doctor, do you know the Armstrongs? Are like, yeah, they supported my education when I came out of the army. Okay, cool. Now they're connected to the Armstrongs too. Great. Oh, I see where this movie's going. And McQueen goes, I never knew Ratchet was Cassetti. What the heck? I would have never worked for him. Then they hear a scream and it's like, oh, look who it is. Looking for more screen time. And she does have a knife in her back though. The doctor's like, I gotta pull this shit out. Boop. There's no fingerprints. The killer was disposing of the murder weapon. Now, can I ask, how could the killer just go into the back and stab her broad daylight on the street? Like, where would they go? They don't have Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, okay? You can't just hide here. It's a confined space. Please leave me all alone. But she keeps begging for screen time. The killer's still at large. Everybody stay here in open view until morning. Okay. Then he finally goes and questions the two people that were guarded by like national whatever. And she's like, I am a vampire. I cannot stand the lights. So apparently she has sleeping problems. So she takes drugs to go to sleep. Oh, so this drug is the drug that was used to make a SETI fall asleep. Fantastic. You're implicated now. Yada, yada, yada. Skip, 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 skip. And he's walking with Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe's like, you must tell me what you think is the answer. It must be the Countess, eh? Poirot's like, we must stop with this charade. This is so stupid. And then he drops the f***ing accent. He's like, a local butcher where I grew up was a kraut. A good man. Great accent. So I stole it. And Willem Dafoe just goes straight into, you know, American mode. Like, you're one sharp knife, I give you that. So he was the first guy that got caught with a huge lie, basically. But it was just about his identity. Because he's also a detective from New York. Cyrus Bethman Hardman. He's been a detective for 30 years. Apparently his detective office called him and said Ratchet had asked for someone to tail him, paying for triple time, so he was doing it. And dude, you did a f***ing terrible job, okay? Go back to fighting Spider-Man. Poirot asked Book to bring Ray. Then they start talking. She's like, it is no interrogation. She's like, no, you just have a clear mind. I just want to discuss things with you. The handkerchief, the pipe cleaner, the scarlet kimono, uniform, the time on the watch. Was he murdered then, or earlier or later, by one person or more? Which of them? Oh, that's all you wrote this whole movie? Are you saying I wrote more for this movie than you wrote, Poirot? Because that's crazy. He's like, maybe it's a question you haven't asked yet that will give you an answer to the rest. Everybody freaking lied to me.
You waited for your roommate to sleep and she did not. You drugged her. And when the coast was clear at last, when you were allowed to enter Ratchet's compartment unseen, you loved Daisy Armstrong, you killed Cassetti.
Then they get to the point where it's like, mask off, you deserve to die. He's like, no one deserves to die. Then look who f***ing shows up, the doctor. Dun dun dun. Shoots him in the arm and goes, she didn't kill him. It's like, I did. That doesn't add up. Even though you're saying you did it, Mary, leave. I can't let you take the blame for what I did alone. She's looking at him like, but I did it, but okay. John Armstrong was my best friend, my commander. He believed in me, paid for my doctoring school, yada, yada, yada. Also connected to Armstrong. Okay, so everybody's connected to Armstrong. And now they finally fixed the train. Oh, what great timing. Great fight scene. Nope, not great fight scene. Gun taken. Oh my God. Oh, wow. He's trying to strangle him. Book to the rescue. Pistol whip that bitch. Everybody get away from the train. We're not fixing it until I freaking monologue. All the suspects in front of him, and it's time to freaking bust down and explain this whole movie. Okay?
None of you are killers. And yet someone must be.
I have two explanations here. Y'all gonna hear me out. One is difficult because it fits with most of the facts, but not all of them, and one of them is super spicy and complex. The first one just says Ratchet enemies, a rogue mafioso, stole a uniform, gets onto the train, stabs him in the night, and then leaves. And Book's like, no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Stop. Dude, what's the other one? Here's the second option. Who stands to benefit from his murder? An ease of suffering? To quiet the shouting voice in the head that prevents sleep? We have the Colonel, a dedicated friend to Armstrong. He finds solace in the governess, that is like a mother to the little girl of the Armstrongs, and so close to Armstrong's young sister, Helena Goldenberg, married to a powerful man no stranger to rage and violence, who travel also with Daisy's godmother, with the handkerchief at the scene of the crime, the letter H in the Russian alphabet, Natalia Dragomirov, the nurse in charge of Daisy Armstrong. You were supposed to be guarding her. Then she breaks down. She's the first one to show cracks. Then the butler goes, I was Colonel Armstrong's Batman in the world. And then the Lion Man is the business guy for the Armstrong, for the automotive, and he's indebted to him. And then the police officer that was assigned to the Armstrong case. Even the conductor's involved. He lost his sister, the accused, He's like, why is there an abundance of evidence and everything? It all makes fucking sense. One final standout. Oh, it's the lady that wanted more screen time. Now I get it. They want to make her important. I just couldn't stand what she was doing, dude. It's just too much. Oh, she had a wig on the whole time. How did that work? Okay, well, I mean, okay. Brown hair. not blonde. He's like, a murder should have one victim. But when Ratchet killed Daisy Armstrong, a dozen lives are broken, deformed, ended. And then they demand justice. So then my point being like, if a murder has one victim, like, no. Everybody is affected around them, yeah. So murder should not have just one victim, like, per se. But I guess what he's getting at is that the murder has one dead person, but then everybody else affected is still kind of a victim. I don't really like that point that he made. Who among these 12 is the killer? Who takes up the knife? The answer is no single one of you could have done it. It could only have been done by all of you. Dun dun dun. Mrs. Hubbard's like, it was my plan. I recruited them all. I had Hardman track down Cassetti. I set McQueen to work for him. And then Masterman. McQueen could arrange the travel that the day the conductor Michelle was on duty. He knocked on all their doors when it was time. That's why there were 12 different stabs with no pattern recognition, because they were all done by one different person. Everybody got their own stab in. 12 stabs for the 12 lives that were altered by this one evil man. Life for life. Revenge. No one should hang for this but me. It was my plan. Tell the police it was me alone.
There was right, there was wrong. Now there is you. I cannot judge this. You wish to go free without punishment for your crime, then you must only commit one more.
And he puts his gun on the table because I will not stop you. Luke's like, you can't let them kill you. Now this plan is super flawed because there's all those other people that are witnessing the events. Like, how are they just going to explain that she just shot the most famous detective in the world in front of Book? Is Book supposed to do nothing? Book has a gun to them. It just doesn't make sense. But it's fine because it plays out this way.
Do it!
She puts the gun on herself and pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. Also, that would have just like shot your jaw off, and that would have been such a painful death. Like, you gotta put that shit in the mouth or against the temple. It was a test, and he's like, I knew it. None of you are murderers. From what I've seen here, this is justice enough. And then he ends the movie with one last little monologue. For once, the scales of justice must not always be evenly weighed. I must learn for once to live with the imbalance. There are no killers here. Only people who deserve a chance to heal. The police have accepted my
first
version of
solution to the crime, the lone assassin who made his escape. I will leave the train here to conclude formalities. You are all free to go. May you find your peace with this. May we all.
So he gets off the train, and then some guy's like, I'm looking for Poirot, and he's like, he's on vacation. There's been a murder right on the bloody Nile. Which another movie in the series, Death on the Nile, with Poirot and some other, maybe I'll cover it sometime, but he's like, I'll see you there, I guess, because something interesting to do. Bro just couldn't chill with his vacation, has to go on to his next detective case. And that's the film. I mean, it's a little all over the place. It's definitely a decent watch the first time around because you don't know, the plot. It's a whodunit that's done in a pretty nice way. I just think the characters were a bit too annoying to deal with. But I mean, like, the characters couldn't just be chill and subtle because with an ensemble cast like this, everybody only has so much time in the spotlight. But being able to follow like the leads like Poirot and Book, that was good because they were actually interesting in a way that wasn't overwhelming or annoying. Anyways, this movie gets 12 mustaches out of 16.